Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak. This week, I sit down with a guy who's a singer-songwriter and so much more. John Ondrasik, who you likely know as the musical artist Five for Fighting. His life story is next. First, let's talk about coffee and the flavorful brews from American Pride Roasters coffee, like the John Adams blend. It's a blend that's full of manly roasted Peruvian beans with dainty bits of cardamom for the perfect balance you'd expect from an APR coffee. A blend that even Thomas Jefferson could support in the heat of election season. This was one of the first APR blends, named after a founding father who was a lawyer, a diplomat, and our nation's first vice president and second president, John Adams. He was deeply involved in the transition from colonial to independent America, and he rightfully has a blend named after him from the folks at APR Coffee. Head over to aprcoffee.com. Be sure to use promo code ATM at checkout, and you're going to get 10% off your purchase. That's the John Adams blend, and so much more available when you head over to aprcoffee.com with promo code ATM.
You're listening to At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production.
John Ondrasik is our guest on this week's edition of At the Mic. He's a California guy who has made it big in the music business with songs you've no doubt sung along to at some point in your life. But there's more to John than just music, like the family business that he helps run, his passion for sports, and his love of country. Without further delay, let's start our chat with this week's guest, John Ondrasik, on At the Mic. Joined today by, and I'm gonna get this out of the way early, John, because I have always heard your last name pronounced Ondrasik. I've never heard you correct anyone. I'm just making sure it's not Ondrasik, and you're just too nice of a guy to correct people.
You're very kind, Keith. It is Ondrasik, though I do think I found lately that if you're west of the Mississippi, it's Ondrasik, but east of the Mississippi, it's Ondrasik. So I answer to both, and it is a pleasure to be with you today.
Okay, very cool. People probably know you from your stage name, Five for Fighting. And first of all, let's just address this up front. The fact that it is named after a hockey term endears me to you from the beginning. I love that, man. but I guess that really wasn't your first choice. You would probably, if you had your druthers, if I'm not mistaken, you'd rather just go by John Ondrasik, correct?
Well, yeah, I'll give you the story, and before I get too far down, congratulations on your Braves World Series. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for your boy Freddie Freeman. How can you not love that guy? Though my Dodgers.
Thank you.
Though my Dodgers are a little sad, but
exactly.
Yeah.
You guys stood in our way last year.
Yeah.
Okay, Braves up 3-1 in the NLCS. It was, of course, in Arlington, Texas, because of COVID. And that was a true Atlanta disaster, like so many in sports before it, where you guys came back and won 4-3, went on to win the World Series. So congratulations to your team in 2020 for winning the World Series. But yes, it was quite a relief getting past you guys and then winning the World Series. This is such a fun team to root for. But you guys will be around for quite a while yourself there with the Dodgers.
Yeah, as long as somebody beats the cheating Astros, I'm happy. So back to the hockey. It was the late 90s. Yeah. And the male singer-songwriter was dead, I was told. I made my first record on EMI Records. I was very excited. And we were about to go to the marketing stage, and the label president came to me and said, John, it's the age of boy bands and Lilith Fair and grunge music, and the male singer-songwriter's dead. Nobody can pronounce her name anyway, which we've already covered. And he said, we would need a band name. There's bands that do that, Counting Crows and 10,000 Maniacs and stuff like that. And I just come from a Kings game, and you remember the great Marty McSorley and Bob Probert. the great fighter, you know.
Oh, yes.
So they'd done their thing that day, and so I sarcastically kind of spit out, you know, just kind of in the moment, how about Five for Fighting, expecting them to hate it. And they're like, you know, it's awesome, great, Five for Fighting. And to this day, I still shake my head. It sounds like a heavy metal band. It sounds like we should be opening for Anthrax. But it stuck, and there's been some silver linings with Five for Fighting along the way. I think I've probably played some big sporting events that I probably would not have played with John Ondrasik. Certainly the hockey events got it kicked off. So it's fine. It's cool. It's about the music. And as you said, you know, if I ever need to get into a hockey game in the NHL, I seem to find a way.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck here. I don't know which direction to go here. So obviously we're going to cover music in depth, but I kind of want to stick for just a moment here because you were born and raised there in Los Angeles. You've alluded to being a Dodgers fan. You've alluded to being a Kings fan. You're just an LA sports guy, correct?
Oh, yeah. You know, grew up, I was so blessed. My parents had seats at the Forum down in the age of, you know, Showtime and Gretzky. It was amazing. You know, on Monday, you'd go watch Magic and Kareem. On Tuesday, you'd watch Wayne and, you know, Curry. And it was kind of the golden age here. And that's, you know, the Gibson home run. So, yeah, I'm a UCLA guy. I went to UCLA. So, you know, it's definitely a UCLA fan and got a good basketball team this year. Nice to see them back. But, yeah, just a huge sports fan. Don't watch as much NBA these days, which makes me sad. But, you know, the world has changed a little bit. But sports is kind of my escape. You know, like many people, music is their escape. You know, sports is mine. So I love it all.
I gotcha. I will say I grew up in Atlanta. The Atlanta Flames were gone before I really knew what was going on.
Right.
I was like 4 or 5 years old when they left town. Thrashers didn't come until I was back in Atlanta, living there as an adult. Now they're, of course, gone. That's got to be a trivia question, by the way. What is the only American city to lose 2 professional sports franchises to Canada? It's got to be Atlanta, with the Flames and the Thrashers, of course, becoming the reincarnation of the Winnipeg Jets, as you know. But I will say the first ever NHL game that I saw in person was at the Forum. Believe it or not, when I was a kid growing up in Atlanta, John, the closest hockey team to me was the St. Louis Blues.
Wow.
So I just adopted them out of geography, and I did, of course, love Brett Hull.
Sure.
And so I was actually visiting my fiance at the time, who lived in LA, who's now my wife. It just ironically enough, while I was there, the Blues were in town. So I saw the Blues and the Kings. I remember going to the Forum, and I remember there's a plaque out front, at least there was at the time, like the biggest crowd ever at the Forum was Phil Collins, who I absolutely love. So anyway, it was just a cool experience. I loved that setting. And I've got to ask you, because when you bring up Marty McSorley and you talk about the late 90s, I specifically remember Gretzky being on the Kings and McSorley and that curved stick during the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah.
Right? Did you ever play, because I used to play, I used to have a Sega Genesis, and I specifically remember how much I loved NHLPA hockey. So I don't know if you ever played that, but I'm telling you, I thought for the last 20, 25 years, that game alone probably had so much to do with hockey's rise in popularity in the 90s and the early 2000s. And I ended up reading an article not too long ago that literally had data points that made that case, that video game, it ended up developing a generation of hockey fans, as far as I could tell.
I think you're right. I mean, hockey, you know, is such a niche sport. It's always been a niche sport. It's always been relatively expensive, too, to get in, unless you want to sit, you know, in the boondocks. Right. So, yeah, I think you're right. For kids who just love playing the games, you know, they found the hockey and they probably never, I bet you, you know, 99% of them have never been to a hockey game or watched a hockey game. Certainly it's not a sport that translates well on TV, but I think you're right. And yeah, that old Forum was so great. The Forum Club had, you know, they had the kind of Forum Club where all the hockey players after the games would come in, and it was a different age and a lot of the Hollywood people there. And you'd see, you know, 2 guys who just got in a scrap on the ice having beers at the bar. And it was really fun, you know, back in the day at that old Forum. And I have some great memories. And of course, when Wayne came, the whole city kind of caught on fire, and I think it really developed hockey here on the West Coast. You know, the Ducks and the Sharks and the Kings went to another level. But it's a great game. It's I was so excited to see the Kings win the Stanley Cup because that curved stick from McSorley had been eating at us for 20 years, and it was really fun when I played the outdoor game I played Dodger Stadium for the Kings and the Ducks. I sang a few songs between the first and second period. I had Marty introduce me,
cool.
And Marty got the biggest round of applause from Kings and Ducks fans. I think everybody loves him, and it was a highlight of my career for sure.
If you're at all curious going forward, please know that I am now an Oilers fan.
You picked a good one.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you what happened with that is that when the Thrashers left town and I was a frustrated hockey fan, I just told my son, who I think he was about 8 years old at the time, 7, 8. Anyway, I said, son, you pick a team for us to follow.
Oh.
And I should have known where this was going to go before the words came out of my mouth. We had just read like a kid's book on the life of Wayne Gretzky.
Oh.
And so I guess it could have gone either way. It could have gone Oilers. I could be there with you with the Kings. But anyway, he picked the Oilers, and we've been following them ever since. And yes, I will say that this year has been quite entertaining thus far. But of course, the playoffs will come, and we all know what's going to happen then. Anyhow, so, all right, you grew up in Los Angeles. I love this when I ask the question on the email that I sent ahead of time. You know, what's your earliest memory? And I love this. I can't remember last week, Keith. Come on. So, but you grew up. You have one sibling, a sister. How close in age are y'all?
Yeah, I'm a year older than my sister. Grew up in the Valley here. You know, kind of was a Valley boy. My mom was a piano teacher and a USC music grad. My dad was an astrophysicist. Worked at JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So had some interesting experiences there with him. So it was a great childhood. I did start playing piano very young. My mom kind of got me going and kind of developed the basics. And she was very wise when I was 13 and wanted to do other things and didn't want to practice. She let me quit, and then I found myself writing songs because it was something I wanted to do, not had to do. And she'd kind of given me the proficiency to play. And then my sister got a guitar on her 15th birthday and decided that it looked good laying against the wall, and never played it. And I grabbed it and taught myself a few chords. And so, no, I was very blessed to have wonderful parents who supported me all through my career. Even to my mid-20s when I was kind of struggling singer-songwriter. They weren't, come on, get a job. I was helping at the family business, so that kind of allowed me to, help the family, help the business, but also pursue my career. And I didn't have success till I was very late, my late 20s, and that's very rare. So I give them a lot of credit for supporting me and sticking with me, and they're very excited. I just had a show the other night here. They're in their 80s now. My dad's still working, 80 hours a week, and they came to the TO Civic Center and they kind of sat there side stage, and it was it's beautiful. It's beautiful. They can still kind of see what I do, and they're proud of the new song, and so yeah, I've been very blessed not to just have great parents, but to have a great family myself.
That is really cool. Let me ask you this: when you went to UCLA, what was your major when you were there? That's
it. Well, I actually couldn't get into UCLA initially. It was impacted. It was one of those days that they would not take any new non-minority students. So I went to USC. My mom went to SC, and my dad went to UCLA. So we're allowed to do that. And so I went to SC for 2 years. I majored in computer science there. I really was enjoying computer science. I'd write a lot of programs for work, but I noticed.
This is your dad's influence, correct? Because the guy is very, very
smart.
I've
always been kind of a science guy, engineer guy. That's always been kind of in my genes, and I loved writing programs. But I realized very quickly that in that major there, you would spend 12 hours a day writing programs, and as much as I enjoyed that, I really missed doing music. So I spent 2 years there, and then when I transferred to UCLA. I decided I just wanted to get a degree where I could get a job when this whole music thing collapsed, and something that I could do that wouldn't take all my time, so I could really focus on music. So I brought my kind of reel-to-reel in my studio and got an apartment on Gailey and put my whole music gear in there, and decided to be a math major because I could kind of get through that and get a job, whatever job you're applying for. If you got a math degree, people think, you can do it. So, and that's what I did. And I spent 2 years there, writing hundreds of songs, recording in my studio, enjoying UCLA, and kind of half being a musician, half being a student. And it was a lot of fun. And but I was still able to pursue my music, just continue writing songs and producing songs. And I still have some of those demo tapes laying around from those days. So it was awesome.
And you have crafted some of the greatest songs of all time, quite frankly. Superman, 100 Years. By the way, the newest one, Blood on My Hands, about the rapid U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, it's a masterpiece. As an American, I want to thank you for your work on that, because it is a powerful song, and people must check this out if they are not familiar with Blood on My Hands. But I have to ask you, you talk about the recording and all of the demos and the hundreds of songs that you've written. See, in my profession, as someone who has been in the radio business for, a quarter of a century now, I listen to old tapes, especially college, and I listen to myself and I think, oh my gosh, that is so terrible. I can't stand to listen to my voice. My kids, I've told the story on this podcast before. When I found those tapes recently, my kids were with me, and we put them in believe it or not, we had a cassette player, and oh my gosh, they had a field day mocking Daddy. And I just wonder, do you ever go back and listen to some of those old songs? And if you do you have that same reaction that I have with the old tapes from my profession?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, what you really hear is your influences, right? Because you're influencing your artists. I don't know if you had that similar with your radio career, if there were certain kind of radio personalities that you really enjoyed. Maybe it was Rush. Maybe, I don't know who it was, back in the day, that you kind of imitated. That's what we do as creators. We typically imitate first. So you can certainly hear, my love for Elton and Billy and the piano players. You could also hear in some songs my love for Prince, and those songs are pretty embarrassing because I am not Prince, and nobody wants me to be Prince. But yeah, you can hear it, and the songs, they're young, right? Of course, they don't have the depth, but I think for that age, that they were part of my process, and you can hear kind of the voice change, and it was interesting. Yeah. Out of college, I'd actually met some ex-members of Pat Benatar's band over the summer, and I had this very kind of interesting, cool, weird experience that I kind of formed a band with these guys, and they were all in their kind of early 40s, and I was, just in my 20s, and it was kind of the height of the Bon Jovi rock, and I could do that, I could sing that, and I could write those songs, and we'd actually kind of got a big manager, and we're about to shop a record deal, and then all of a sudden this band called Nirvana came out, and that whole industry basically collapsed within a week, which for me was actually a pretty good break, because then I went back and started writing, my kind of songs, the piano-based, kind of more 70s oriented singer-songwriter songs. But it was really fun, with those guys. I heard a lot of stories, and I learned a lot from them. And we wrote some good songs, but they certainly weren't the songs that kind of reflected kind of who I was as a songwriter. But yeah, it's you got to write, the 10,000 hour rule, the 20,000 hour rule. I'm like the 30, 40,000 hour rule to become really proficient at something. And it's easy to hear like a song like Superman and go, oh, that sounds so simple. But that's the key. You have to learn how to write songs that sound simple and may not be quite as simple when you write them. But for me, I had to write, as I said, thousands of songs to to kind of get there. Other people don't have to. Some are prodigies and they can just kind of whip them out. And you listen to the Beatles and McCartney and Lennon and even Elton, and they're so prolific with their songwriting, and they just have that gift. But most of us, it's a job, it's work, it's taking a swing and batting .025 to get a song that people might want to hear. So it's certainly a process.
Yeah, that's a great point you make about the Beatles. I was listening to Sirius XM radio where they were going through the career of the Beatles, and I can't recall the album it was. I don't believe it was Rubber Soul, which is my favorite one. But there was an album that they had a session recorded like studio time, and their time expired in like 12 hours, and they still needed, I forgot if it was 4, the numbers 4 and 7 are in my head right now, and they had to literally from scratch create these songs. These songs, John, they went on to be big singles, big hits for them that they literally on the spot created from scratch during the 11th hour of recording time at the studio. But they're absolutely right to your point. Just some people have that gift. It's amazing.
Yeah, those bastards. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So hold on. Did I read somewhere, and maybe this is who you were alluding to with the Pat Benatar gang there, did I read somewhere that you were actually part of a metal band for a brief time, or did I misread something?
No, I mean, that's probably what it was. It wasn't certainly a metal band. It was one of those, hair rock bands,
Okay.
And
okay.
And I became very good friends with a guy named Rudy Sarzo. Now, Rudy Sarzo was one of the preeminent rock bassists of the time. He started with Ozzy, and then he was in Quiet Riot, and then when I met him, he was in Whitesnake when Whitesnake was kind of at the top of their, Is This Love, Here We Go Again fame, and it was really, I kind of had that almost famous moment. I was this kind of young kid. I wasn't 15, but I was in my early 20s, and I'd go to the Whitesnake shows, and I'd be kind of, this little fly on the wall riding up the elevator with Coverdale and the band, and kind of they would say, all right, John, you can't come in here, there's going to be things going on that that you're not supposed to be part of. But he was such a great mentor for me, because it was funny, he's known for licking his bass and being this kind of wild, crazy rock star, but he was a Cuban, loved his wife, very faithful married guy, and closet Barry Manilow fan. And so we spent a lot of time together, and he gave me a lot of confidence and helped me in the studio, and being from Cuba too, he had a kind of a different worldview than many of the people in the arts. So I met some really cool people along the way that helped kind of form my career and my outlook on the business. And Scott Sheets, the guy from Pat Benatar who wrote Fire and Ice, all these guys were just so wonderful to me. And to this day, I'm grateful, and I try to pay it back with some work for kids that I work with, but and they're still going. Rudy's still rocking, man. He's still out there playing with Quiet Riot, and more power to him.
That is super cool. I will say this. Let me offer a suggestion. If you ever do find yourself in a metal band, maybe you should go by the name 2 for Slashing.
Yes, yeah. There you go.
You like that?
Delay of game.
Okay,
Delay of game. Yeah.
Okay, I got to tell you, though, the older I get, and I don't care, I'm fine admitting this. As I get older and I pass the milestones in the song 100 Years, my gosh, man, I cannot listen to that song now, I've noticed lately, without tearing up.
Oh.
Because, my gosh, the lyrics, it's just a powerful, powerful song, and I had to get that out there. That is a timeless song. So kudos to you for creating just one of the most effective songs as far as moving the emotional needle.
Thank you. That song, a lot of artists, I'm very grateful, because a lot of artists kind of get exhausted with their popular songs. I mean, it sounds kind of lame, because boy, as a songwriter, may we all be blessed to have one hit song, be a one-hit wonder. But, I also understand, when you play something 10,000 times, it's hard to kind of have that, initial energy and joy. But, with 100 Years, I'm always somewhere in that song. I wrote the song, I was in the top of the second verse, now I'm in the bridge, and it's, for whatever reason, I never get tired of that song. And Superman too, Superman always has an emotional thing. So I'm lucky that my two big popular songs are ones that I really enjoy playing. And it's fun to hear people who say, yeah, when I was 15 when I heard that song, and now I'm just got married and I'm in that, I'm in that second verse and our kid's on the way. And I always say, all right, that's good, but hey, I got the midlife crisis right too, so be ready. So
don't sell yourself short. The riddle was big as well for you.
Yeah.
So you've put out some very popular songs in addition to just the talent. The piano playing is superior. I hope that you will tell us the story of playing Superman at the 9/11 benefit concert in New York City on a night that you had almost determined, they don't need me. I'm just here for just hanging out here. And yet it turned out to be one of the centerpiece songs of that night. In the way that your sound went out in your ears, I hope you're not tired of telling this story, because I just recently heard this and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a fascinating story about you at that concert. Yeah,
it was surreal. Of course, I had just gotten used to hearing Superman on the radio. I was in London on 9/11 and kind of was like everybody, just stunned, and I couldn't get back to the States because, they shut down air travel. But when I got back, Superman had become a song that was paying tribute to those firefighters who ran into those buildings and gave their lives, and kind of for the whole city of New York. And my friend Rick Krim, who ran VH1, called me and said, hey, McCartney's doing this concert. We'd like you to come play Superman. And I was kind of in shock. I just gotten used to hearing my song on the radio. And of course I said, sure, whatever you want. And then, as you said, it turned out that pretty much every living influence of mine was on that stage. Townsend, Elton, Billy, go down the list. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I got to Madison Square Garden that morning, and I was flipping through the itinerary. It was like 4 hours long, if you remember. There was a zillion bands. Yeah. And I kept expecting, I saw all the kind of new bands, the kind of up-and-coming bands early in the first hour, and I kept flipping. I didn't see myself, and I kind of was thinking to myself, oh, thank God they forgot me, because I was so nervous. I was just so nervous, of course. You're a young songwriter, and all of a sudden, Madison Square Garden, 20 million people watching you live. And then I got to the last page, and it was like John Cougar, Five for Fighting, Elton, Janet Jackson, then Paul McCartney, good night. And I'm like, you kidding me? So I had to sit there the whole time and just kind of, kind of wait. The thing that kind of, in a way, helped me was many of the families were backstage, walking around meeting the artists that had lost their loved ones. And so I spent some time with them, and that reality, I think, really kind of calmed me down. I'm like, dude, you know, whatever nerves you have, it's like, look at the real picture. And that night kind of had that. Any other night it would have been the highlight of my career, but the tone and the reason we were there were so overwhelming and just such a heavy weight of kind of sadness, but also inspiration. The rest of it didn't matter. And even though I was watching my favorite artist perform, it was kind of like, watching through a fog. And, when I went out there, as you said, it was me and my cello player, Vic, and I sat down and they were having technical problems all night. If you remember, people's mics wouldn't work. And I sat down at the piano and they couldn't get my in-ears to work. And I forget who was introducing me, but they were filling and making stuff up. And finally my ears popped on. They said, go. I hit the first chord, boom, 100 decibels of white noise in each ear. I don't know who hit the wrong button. Oh. And I tell people, I do some keynotes, I'm like, in your life you have moments of truth, right? That kind of define your life and how you respond to crisis. And that was one. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't hear a thing, but it's you talk about sports players talk about how time slows down for them sometimes, and it did slow down for me, and I kind of thought, well, I can either stop, take my ears out, start over, which would really kind of just break the whole tone, or I could just play and hope for the best. And I was looking out at the audience, and there was this big union worker, who'd probably been down at ground zero for 30 days and just digging through the rubble, unimaginable what they'd been through, everybody there. And he was singing with me, and he had 2 beers and beer in each hand, and he was starting to sing Superman with me. And so I just watched him, and I sang with him, and halfway through he started crying, and then I kind of teared up a little bit. And it's amazing. I never till I saw it on video, I never heard my actual performance at the concert for New York. But yeah, it was surreal. Wow. But it was the most important thing I'll ever do. And I just am so grateful that there were songs like Superman that helped our country through that time. And I do think it's kind of was an education to me. And I think my mindset changed that day about how music matters. We kind of live in the shallow culture of fame and fortune and chart position and did you sell out, and I saw a song move people in a way that none of that mattered. And with some of my songs after that didn't become hits, songs like Freedom Never Cries that became important for many in our military, and a song like Blood on My Hands that will never get a spin on the radio. I've kind of my approach is different, and I understand that if the world doesn't hear it, that's fine. But there may be a small group of people where it means way more to them than any hit on the radio. So I think that really changed my mentality as not just a songwriter, but as a person. And we just came off the 20th anniversary, right? So, I still can't believe that. And I don't know if I would have written a song like Blood on My Hands if I didn't have that experience and kind of change of mindset back 20 years ago at Madison Square Garden.
Wow. Just to recap, you're on the stage there and you literally aren't hearing anything, correct? Like
yeah.
You're just, are you playing by memory?
Yeah,
then?
pretty much. Yeah, all you hear is like, just white noise. Yeah, so you're kind of playing by memory. Wow. And, you've done it so many freaking times, Of course, then I hadn't played it 10,000 times, but I probably played it 500 times. So muscle memory kicks in. And that's one thing I always tell artists, it's like you can't practice enough because you're always going to be nervous when you get in these situations if you go on TV or whatever. And, that muscle memory saves you, and it certainly saved me.
So in the email, when you replied to the question, what's the most scared you've ever been? And your response was doing this show. I'm going to guess that that night was a little bit more frightening for you in retrospect, yeah?
It was, yeah. I mean, certainly in retrospect, you don't know it's coming. I mean, it was scary enough just to go on that stage, just to be nervous. But But yeah, I mean, but that's part of this job. You got to be able to walk into the fire, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But I always tell young songwriters, the minute you step on that stage, you've won because you have the courage to do what many people will never have the courage to do. And similar in your business, to be out to get on the radio and speak your mind, speak your worldview. That takes courage, and you can't. It's never, it's not going to go well every time. And sometimes you learn more from when it doesn't go well than when it does. And I think some of those experiences in my life have kind of shaped me as well.
These days, you are the vice president of your family's manufacturing business. Tell us about your parents, their influence on you, and what you guys do as a family today. This is so cool, man.
Yeah, no, we have a small manufacturing business out here in California. It's been in the family for, almost 75 years now. My dad, when my grandfather passed away relatively young in his 60s, left JPL and took over the family business and used his engineering skills to really kind of not only build the machines to make our products. We make things out of wire. Early when I started working, it was like oven racks and things that would go into shelves, like in the 7-Eleven, the shelving that you see the soda on. We still make those.
Right.
But our big product now is shopping carts. We've been making shopping carts for 30 years. If you and your listeners shop at Costco, you use our card. And my dad's made the best cart in the world, and again, he's been working there, and it's amazing. It's wonderful because you see the American dream. You know, you see people start at minimum wage. Many who I worked with when I was in my teens who are still with us, and now their kids are coming back from Princeton and Stanford, and you kind of just watch the American dream before your eyes. It's been very challenging, of course. Anybody who's listening knows running a business, especially a manufacturing business in California, is almost impossible because of the climate here and the toxicity of California and business. But it's fun, and I still, after we end up this chat, I have, I'll be doing some Zoom calls with some of our customers. So it's been odd, I go on tour and I play a show, and the next day I'll be meeting with the HEB in San Antonio to talk about it. But it's really cool because it really grounds me. I think the music business can maybe cloud your reality about what the world's like. And my son's working for us now. He's 22, so we have this window where my son's working with us. My dad's still vibrant, and so it's awesome. It's awesome, and maybe one day we'll open a facility in Texas and be close to you guys, because California is still sure trying to get us out of here. But it's awesome, and I really enjoy it, and my dad's probably the most, my main mentor. So it's wonderful to watch him still do his thing.
That is really awesome. And first of all, you guys are absolutely welcome in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Please. Absolutely. But I will say, I don't even have to walk into a Costco to respond to what you just said about how those are your carts. I just know those carts are sturdy. Like those are real carts. I just know this from experience as a Costco customer. So anyway,
yeah, no, well,
I didn't realize.
Well, it's my dad. You would think shopping carts had been engineered to death, right? But when he came in, they hadn't. So and the nice thing was he was starting from scratch, so he could address the chronic problems of shopping carts, and he still does. We have a new concept cart, and he's always tweaking it, to make it better and better. But yeah, that's why it's fun for him, because he's an engineer, and that's what he loves to do, is just make things better and then make the machines to make them. So yeah, Costco, HEB, we do a lot of Albertsons, and we'll keep grinding them out, man, for you guys.
I love it. Yes. Okay, I love this. I've got to know more about how you've been a guest writer for Sports Illustrated. Tell us about that, man.
Well, we talked about my love for sports, and back in the day when I was kind of having hits, I'd be asked to do a lot of radio. Of course, I have to do the morning shows, and I'd come play Superman. I'd do a bunch of radio, and as you know, when you go into a network building, there's 10 shows going on, right? You got the news show, you got the music show, you got the sports show. So I'd always be walking through the halls, and then after my radio hit, I'd run into some of the sports anchors, and many of them I were fans of. And so we would start chatting, and then eventually they'd start saying, come on the show. So I was more excited to do the radio shows and the music shows. And then I started doing some of the big ones. I remember going on Jim Rome. I was more nervous to go on Jim Rome than I was to go on, Kiss FM.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, and I started becoming buddies with these guys, and I met some of the editors from Sports Illustrated, and they're like, man, we've heard you talk sports, and if you ever want to write an op-ed for anything, let's do it. And I did. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I started writing for a Sports Illustrated website, and I remember I wrote some articles, mostly about hockey. I remember I wrote one about Messier that he really liked, and I wrote one basically during the Penn State debacle, and it got some play. I went down to Gitmo and played for the troops, and I wrote an article talking about how the lead commander down there actually had a little roller hockey rink, and how hockey was so important down in Gitmo. And I got some like hate mail from some of the NHL coaches who were, didn't like the fact that I went to Gitmo. It was like surreal. But yeah, and then when the Kings, when I was so lucky, when the Kings in 2012, I was buddy was Luc Robitaille and those guys, and they said, "Would you like to blog our season?" I'm like, "Hell yeah." And of course, that was a season they won the Stanley Cup. So I was behind.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was behind the scenes. I got to go to some of the road playoff games, and I actually wrote an article kind of halfway through the season called, and the title was "Why Not This Year?" Because we had talent, we had a great goalie, and who would have known they won the Cup. So yeah, to be able to blog for the Kings the year of the Cup was so thrilling for me, and to be at some of the parties afterwards, and actually to be able to drink out of the Stanley Cup. Again, I've had some great music moments in my career, but nothing was better than that. So yeah, it's been really fun.
And that actually is when I ask if you could only keep 5 possessions, what would they be? And one of them is your signed Stanley Cup by the 2012 Kings. That's pretty cool, man. And then you got your Newman vocal mics.
Yeah.
I mean, look at you, man.
Yeah.
You're
well,
practical.
we had the fires up here, in California a couple years ago. And I was actually coming home from a hockey game, and I looked up, and it looked like there was this big red cloud over the hill. And we had not been told to evacuate, but I'm like, this is bad. And I get home and I told my wife, I go, we got to get ready. She's like, no, nobody's called. And of course, 5 minutes, get out. And I grabbed, as you said, those vocal mics that I've used my whole career. I grabbed my 1930 Martin. I grabbed that Stanley Cup signed Kings Invitation Cup, and threw the dog, threw the daughter, threw the wife, and we got the 2 cars and basically just zipped out of here, never expecting to have a home.
You've had to think about this, actually.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
People should drive like their photos, but I guess, these days, I guess they're online. But yeah, I grabbed those, and and she grabbed her recipes, which I've always loved. She grabbed her recipes. And yeah, but
That's funny.
yeah, so yeah, it's, we never thought we'd win a cup. It's like you with the Blues, right? When the Blues finally won, it was like, oh God, thank God, I never thought I'd see it. So yeah, it was, and I have this cup right here. I'm looking at it right now, man. I still can't believe we won, much less 2.
See, I moved on from the Blues by the time they won, because that's how I operate. Well, I can't say that anymore because the Braves won.
You're
so
right,
I can at least
right.
say that, yeah. Because I don't know that I count the 95 World Series, not to get too deep into the weeds, but the way Atlanta teams have a history of choking. Of course, the Falcons' epic collapse is monumental in 28-3. But I contend that the 95 World Series, you can put an asterisk there because the season started a couple weeks late, so the universe didn't know that it was time for the Braves to collapse that October in 1995. Let's see. 65 Mustang? You got a 65 Mustang, is that right?
Yeah, got a 65 Mustang sitting in the garage. My dad brought me home from the hospital in that car, and we've been trading it back and forth. And
nice.
It got a song called 65 Mustang that folks seem to enjoy if they're car buffs. And yeah, I just like, I write songs about what I see, what's around me, what matters. And my kids, are taking turns driving it. And but yeah, you get back in that car. It's a time machine, takes you back to days gone by. But no, it's a lot of fun, and it's in pretty good shape these days too. I drive it a lot.
That is really cool. I think it's awesome that you have a 45 of Superman. That's got to feel special, huh?
Yeah, well, when you get nominated for a Grammy, I never knew this. One of the perks is they'll make a 45 of the song that was nominated. So I have a batch of these 45s with Superman on one side and America Town on the back, and I probably should buy a record player, just play it one time. I've never done that, but yeah, it's awesome. And sometimes I'll just kind of walk in and I don't keep them on my desk, but I'll walk in my closet and I'll see them sitting there, and I'll be, damn, boy, the dreams did come true. The dreams can come true.
They sure did. You mentioned your family. You have, a son and a daughter, both in their early 20s now, correct?
Yeah, my son's here in L.A. My daughter's in New York pursuing her passion. She's a musical theater kid, great songwriter, and my son working for the business and going to school. And my wife is amazing. She was a big music publisher and kind of...
That's what I wanted to ask you. Yeah, Carla, you've been married for 24 years. I want to know, where did you guys meet?
You know, believe it or not, we met in a piano bar on Melrose and Vine. I was a struggling singer-songwriter playing this piano bar every Friday night and, trying to get some of my friends to come. And she walked in, and afterwards she said, I get people record deals and this is what I do, and you got something there. And we worked together for a couple years. Never was a romantic interest. I always was, head over heels with her because she's just so beautiful. And, to her, I was basically...
Took her a while to catch up, huh?
Yeah, to her, I was, just another commodity singer-songwriter, but she finally saw the light one day, and we will be 25 next year. And it's been awesome because, she... Not only is she just great as a music person and she knows hit songs and has put together writers for some of the biggest songs ever, but she understands the obligations of being a singer-songwriter, touring, promotion. So and it's great to have someone share it all with you, right? It's the highs are great, but if you have no one to share it with you, they're kind of hollow. And the lows too, when you have someone like that, you realize that it's not the end of the world when things don't go right. So she's my partner in crime, and she just got off the road with me. And she, I tell the story that when I met her, she was the girl in the black jacket. And other night in San Diego, she's still the girl in the black jacket who's my biggest fan. And it's been a great ride to share it with her.
That is super awesome, John. I have to ask you this. I know I'm going to be wrong, but I'm still going to bring it up. You have a dog named Ender.
Yeah.
There was a former Braves player named Ender Inciarte that I absolutely love, to the point where I actually bought a bobblehead of him for my desk at work. That, by the way, a coworker broke and still has not come clean. I don't know who broke my Ender Inciarte bobblehead, but I was just wondering if you named your dog after Ender Inciarte. I had to ask.
I did not. It's probably Glenn Beck who broke your bobblehead, so I would, I'd accuse him.
Yep.
But no, it's actually named after one of my favorite books I read as a kid, Ender's Game, the science fiction book by Orson Scott Card. My whole family loves that book. So when we got our little lab, who we thought we rescued a chocolate lab who turned out to be a Weinorama retriever. we named him Ender, and he's our perfect little boy. He's 12 now, and still, slowed down a little bit, but still sleeps between us every night. And again, one of my big joys, and whatever happens, you come home and Ender loves you the same, just like your kids and your family. Mm-hmm. So he's awesome. We're big dog people. We're big animal people over here, and Ender's quite a good boy. And he lays in my studio when I work, so he's kind of my co-writer.
Dogs, man, we don't deserve them.
I love that.
It's not an original.
Yeah, I'm going to use it anyways.
Yeah. You mentioned the book there that you enjoyed. Your favorite book that you've ever read is, you listed anything by Murakami.
Yeah.
I'm just not familiar. Tell me about this author.
Haruki Murakami is a Japanese author. To me, it's fascinating because he's actually a huge pop music fan, but it's kind of... it's hard to describe him. He's got a little bit of sci-fi, but to me he's the greatest living author. And there's so many books. IQ 84. I mean, just Google him and start with his early Kafka on the Shore. Start with some of his early books, and I was actually turned on to him by my friend Brian Koppelman, who was the A&R guy who signed me at EMI Records and is now the showrunner of Billions. He's had quite a career. He turned me on to Murakami. And if you haven't read him, pick up one of his early books and check it out. And I think you won't be disappointed.
Okay. Last book you read was I, Claudius. What's that about?
Yeah, so I, Claudius... it was funny. My daughter was home, and Claudius was one of the Roman emperors. And about 40 years ago, there was a great PBS stage special, I, Claudius, with some incredible actors. John Hurt was in it back in the day, and it was a stage setting. I think they did 10 episodes, and it's about Claudius's experience as coming up in some of the early ages of the Roman Empire. He kind of followed Augustus and Antony, and he actually, he had a lisp and he had a limp, and they all kind of thought he was, kind of a gimp, and but it kind of saved his life because, those days they were killing anybody that was a threat to the family, and so he kind of lived under the radar, and was a writer and a historian, and the stars aligned where he became emperor. And it's such a, if folks haven't seen that series, I think you can buy it on Amazon. And also as an acting exercise, some of the most incredible acting I've ever seen. And so we were watching it with my daughter, and I said, I'd never read the book, so I bought the book, I, Claudius. There's also a sequel, Claudius the God. So if you're into kind of Roman history, or if you're into acting or just writing, I would recommend that book and the series to everybody.
Okay, that I'm very intrigued. I love this answer. If you could go back in history, who would you like to meet? And I need to reword this because so many folks will say Jesus Christ, which is an absolute winner of an answer. But I also see that you list Einstein, and this may be the best answer ever. Raquel Welch in 1 million BC.
Hopefully it's just me and her.
Nice job with that one.
Hopefully it's just me and her, right? There's nobody left. It's just me and her. She has no other options. Sorry, Raquel. Sorry, sorry, but yeah, I guess probably my second favorite movie of all time besides 2001. But yeah, it's, Einstein's just such an interesting guy with his history and being a nerd. I was actually at Caltech when they had the gravity waves, being proven, that basically validated his theory. It took him forever to he hypothesized gravity waves, but they were very hard to detect. And I don't know, 6-7 years ago, there was a big conference at Caltech, and the rumor was, well, maybe that they discovered gravity waves. And so I went to check it out, and they had, and it really kind of validated Einstein. And I thought, man, I wish he was here to kind of to see that. But yeah, Jesus Christ, it'd be interesting to have a conversation. I think we'd learn a lot about him, about religion,
if you could,
about
right. Is there a particular burning question that you would ask Jesus, or just in general, I want to have a conversation with him?
I'm the songwriter. I'd probably have it be more like an interview. Tell me about yourself. What inspires you? What's your favorite book? I know. but
yeah, you'd be taking notes.
Yeah, I mean, my sister is a Presbyterian minister, so I've always kind of had this this kind of interest in religion. I'm not an overly religious person, but I'm fascinated by religion, and I'm also I have a lot of religious imagery in my songs, which is not intentional.
Yeah.
It just kind of happens. Songs like "If God Made You." So I'm always kind of just interested in the psychology of religion and that whole thing, and especially how it plays a role in the culture. So yeah, it'd be fun to have a chat with JC.
Yeah, let me bring this full circle. We talked about the Beatles, Press for Time in the studio. You talked about religious imagery in your songs. And as you're talking, I am reminded by a quote I read from Bono, lead singer for U2, obviously. He has talked about the past when they are in the studio and he's struggling for lyrics. He just opens up the Bible at some random place, and that's where he gets ideas for songs. I found that fascinating when I saw that, but it makes total sense as I'm a huge U2 fan, and it's just fascinating how you guys come up with songs. I don't think that any songwriter has the same method of getting pen to paper.
Yeah, I mean, you're always looking for anything. Whatever. You watch a movie, you read a book. It's if there's always a good song in every room, if you can just hear it and see it. So I think we're always looking for inspiration. I think that's a great idea. With Bono, it's the language, the words. Sometimes just a word or a line can inspire a song. So. Yeah, man. Whatever your process is.
Sure. Any regrets that you would care to share, or anything that you would like to go back and do over again that you would care to discuss with us today?
There's always things you'd like to go back and go over again and do over again. I wish I would have written with more artists. I had a lot of opportunities to write with other artists, and I was kind of locked in my own thing. But I wouldn't go back and do it all over again because that was my path, and here I am, and it's still continuing, and we all have regrets, but I think we learn from them, and that's part of who we are. So Yeah, as I said, I'm very blessed, healthy family, live in the greatest country that's ever existed, and great parents. So we'll just keep moving, chugging the best we can.
I love your bucket list. You want to take your wife to see the Northern Lights. Any particular place up north you would want to take her in order to see them?
Not really. I think if we can find them, we'll be on a plane to see them. I'd rather not go to Iceland. I'd rather go to Alaska, just a shorter flight. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of her bucket list things, and hopefully I want to go see the waves in Portugal. She wants to see the Northern Lights, so hopefully we'll knock those out in the next year or two.
So wait a minute, what are the waves in Portugal? I'm not familiar at all.
Oh, watch the documentary, The 100-Foot Wave. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. The biggest waves in the world are down there. That's where the big wave surfers kind of kicked it off, and I want to go down there and see an 80-foot wave, in front of my face. Okay. From the land.
Now, do you surf at all?
Yeah,
or
I get it.
Being that you were born and raised in L.A.?
I get on the boogie board, but yeah, I'm not a surfer.
Okay. Now, did you... I've seen you playing hockey before. Is that something that's always been a part of your life as far as you actually being on the ice a lot or not so much or what?
No, I just taught myself how to play hockey after college, terrible player, got, scored a goal because somebody shot a puck off my helmet into the net, and that's my claim to fame. There's my...
Is that true?
It is true.
Is that exactly how it went down?
It is true, yeah. I got checked into the crease and somebody shot a puck off my helmet into the net, but it counts. And I touched it last.
That's
my
awesome.
Goal. It's my goal.
John, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That's actually more legit than when I tell people I played Little League Baseball for 13 years and I had 1 home run. And actually, it was literally a bunt with 3 throwing errors, but I call it a home run.
It is a home run. It is a home run.
I don't know if that's right. Anything interesting in your Amazon cart currently? You want to check that and let us know what's in the John Ondrasik Amazon
probably
cart?
Just gifts for my daughter, whatever she needs. And at school, I'm always, sending her knickknacks. But yeah. Nothing too exciting.
Okay. 5forfighting.com is where we can find all of your stuff.
Yep.
5forfighting.com, simple enough. At John Ondrasik on Twitter. I don't know if you're anywhere else. That's where I know you because that's the only place I hang out on social media. But at John Ondrasik on Twitter. Anything we have failed to cover here today, sir?
No, buddy. No, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. And again, congrats on your Braves, and look forward to coming back to Texas and hanging out with you and your crew. And I appreciate you supporting, the songwriters who may have a different worldview than most. I know you support 5 Times August and some of those other great songwriters, so thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. And if people still aren't familiar, you got to go check out Blood on My Hands. Such a powerful, powerful song with an important message for every American that they need to hear it. So, John, thank you so much for making time here on At the Mic. I really appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, Keith. Take care, buddy.
John is such a nice guy. It was such a blast getting to know him and his story. You don't realize the layers to people until you start chatting with them. And I'm so grateful that John could make time for At the Mic this week. And I appreciate you making time every week. And between now and the next time we get together, if you wouldn't mind reviewing this podcast over at Apple iTunes, rating it, and please consider sharing the link at themicshow.com with your friends or your family who may have the need for some good conversation in their own life. We're always looking to reach new people with this show, and that's an important role that you play in helping to spread the word. Don't forget merchandise. It's available when you head to atthemicshop.com. We're always looking to add new merchandise, and your suggestions are always welcome. Be sure to reach out to us. Hey, next week, I'm going to sit down with a former lawmaker from New Hampshire. She was serving an elective office when she was a teenager. The story of my friend Yvonne Bailey next week here on At the Mic. Until then, please go be free, and thank you for listening.
This has been At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production. Head to atthemicshow.com for archived episodes, sponsor information, and ways to connect.